Hello and welcome to the Georgia Voice of College Football. I am your host, Matt Green, and here we are. I appreciate everyone for tuning in live and everyone who's found this channel on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. It really helps out the channel, helps us grow, and helps us find and reach more college football fans, more Georgia football fans. More importantly, that's what we're all really here for. College football is great, but Georgia football, I think we can all agree, is better. So I appreciate everyone tuning in today. We are 15 days right now till Georgia laces them up in New Orleans in the college football playoff, and obviously, with being just 15 days out, the biggest story must be the pregame and talking about the opponent, right? No, that's not what everyone's talking about in college football. What everyone's talking about is essentially free agency. We're in the middle of the NFL playoffs and we're talking about free agency. That's what's happening right now in the college football world. Maybe someone will make sense of it. We had the draft and free agency between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs. That makes a whole lot of sense here in this college football world we live in 2024. That's honestly, not to start things off in a negative tone, but that's my biggest problem with this whole thing. Like, making the college football playoff, now there's 12 teams in the playoff. Like, it's more important than ever, right? There's going to be all these different fan bases that are excited about their team's chance to win a college football national championship. Like, that's what should be being talked about right now. And instead, we're talking about teams like LSU and teams like Texas A&M that are making noise in the portal. Teams like Kentucky losing their players in the portal. Teams like USC losing their players in the portal. Teams like Marshall that I think lost like half of their roster or like their entire roster or something. I think they're not even playing in their bowl game against Army because they don't have enough roster spots. So it's just a crazy, and obviously that's the bowl games. That's not the actual like postseason that's deciding a national champion like these other ones are. But yeah, that's my biggest problem is we're sitting out here 15 days till Georgia plays in the quarterfinals of the college football national championship. And we're not necessarily talking about who the Georgia's opponent is. Part of that is because we don't know who Georgia's opponent is yet. And we'll get into that with the winner of Notre Dame and Indiana coming up on Friday night. But I think the number one story, for unfortunately for good reason, is the transfer portal. I think that's the most topical thing right now, because as a Georgia fan, you're sitting here, we don't know who we're playing. We can't really break down the film. We can't hear what the Indiana experts are. I guess you could just listen to Indiana experts. You can listen to Notre Dame experts. You could prepare for two teams, channel your inner Kirby Smart, like the coaching staff, and just prepare for both teams. You can do that, and we're gonna kind of do that a little bit later. But I think you got to start with the transfer portal. I'll say this. Let's not start with the transfer portal. The first thing I'll start with is the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, Georgia native. I guess he's a Florida native, but Collins Hill High School native. And Collins Hill has a soft spot. I'm a North Gwinnett alum, for those out there that don't know. So the Collins Hill North Gwinnett rivalry, it felt like it kind of fizzled out by the time I reached high school. But it felt like in younger years, elementary school, middle school, that thing was a legit rivalry. But I played my youth GFL days for the Collins Hill Eagles. So me and Travis Hunter, we're not so different, you and I. No, that's about where the similarities end between me and Travis Hunter. We both have lived in Lawrenceville, Georgia at some point in our lives. And we've been on that same football field in Collins Hill, in Swanee, I should say. Basically Lawrenceville, Swanee. You guys know. If you know, you know. If you don't, this is pointless to you. But I will say, so Travis Hunter winning the Heisman, I do want to pat myself on the back a little bit. I'm not going to say I discovered Travis Hunter by any means. I don't know if you guys have seen it went viral the other day. I would give this guy credit, whoever you are on Instagram. I'd give you credit if I knew who you were. But I saw this video clip the other day that this guy, his dad, watched the national championship, the year Clemson and LSU were in the national championship with Joe Burrow, and it was like, this Joe Burrow guy, this guy's pretty good. And so from that day on, this guy's dad like insists that he like discovered Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow's my guy, and so everything. I will say when I saw Travis Hunter, it may have been against North Gwinnett on like just a locally broadcasted game several years ago with Collins Hill. I was watching this guy because I heard Collins Hill's got the number one player in the country, number one corner in the country. And I watched this guy play and I was like, I know it says he's the number one corner in the country, but this is like the best wide receiver I've ever seen play high school football. And, maybe I was right. Maybe Travis Hunter, he playing both sides of the ball, just absurd what this guy's been able to do this year. I feel like a lot of hate has been coming towards Travis Hunter. I think it's just the hate towards Deion and disrupting the status quo that Colorado's kind of done. And they've just been an exciting team to watch, and they've gotten a lot of media coverage and everything. But I'm with people when it's like undeserved media coverage. This Colorado team it deserves every bit of the hype they've gotten over the last 2 years. Like Deion Sanders taking this team from a 1-win team before he got there in 2022 to now winning 9 games, now in a Heisman Trophy winner in 2024. And I know a Heisman Trophy winner, that's not a team award, but it kind of is. Like if Travis Hunter does what he did on a 7-5 team, on a 6-6 team, I don't think there's any real story. I think doing what he did on an actual, like a team that was competing for the college for a college ball playoff spot going into like the 11th game of the season until they got upset. Who was it? Oh, it was it Arizona State? No. Who did Colorado lose to down the stretch? Oh man, I'm totally blanking on that. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, and blowing their college football playoff chances late in the season. Like this team, I think if this team was in this field, they would be a low key dark horse in this field because there's not a lot of, especially the quarterback position, there's not a lot of star power in this playoff, and there's definitely not a lot of quarterback stars. And Shedeur Sanders, this guy's the potential number 1 pick in the draft, and this team could have made some noise if they would have gotten to the Big 12 championship, or if they would have won the Big 12 championship and gotten into the playoff. They lost to the Kansas Jayhawks, the Giant Killers. I don't know. I forgot about the Jayhawks, just disrupting everybody's season down the stretch this year. But yeah, a lot of hate I feel like Travis Hunter has gotten for, just kind of the Deion hate is kind of rubbed off on him. I've seen people talking about, oh, you give Heisman out for playing a lot of snaps. Oh, that's cool. It's like it's not even that simple. Like that's an easy stat that people have thrown out there all season because it is so impressive, because other guys don't play this many snaps. If other guys were playing this many snaps, it wouldn't be talked about the way it is. So give all the credit in the world to this guy. Maybe the best receiver in college football this year, maybe the best corner in college football this year. It's like Shohei Ohtani. If this guy's going to be great on both sides of the ball, then yeah, he's the Heisman. He's the best player in the country. Does he go number 1? I don't really know, but I can't say enough about Travis Hunter and how good he was this year. I'm not here. If you're here for the Travis Hunter hatred, I don't see it the same way. Ashton Jeanty, great season at Boise State, but not more impressive than what Travis Hunter did. But also, we don't have to smear these guys. This thing, and maybe it's just a social media phenomenon. The Jordan LeBron debate. We couldn't just talk about, these are like the 2 greatest players of all time. Pretty crazy that we see big time high schoolers all the time get hyped up, and none of them are ever the second greatest player in the history of the sport like LeBron James was, and maybe the greatest player, if that's your opinion. But there's so much of the discourse is, oh, this is why Jeanty has no business winning the Heisman. This is why Travis Hunter has no business winning the Heisman. Either of these guys win the Heisman, they're deserving award winners, right? I think Travis Hunter more so than Ashton Jeanty. But yeah, congratulations to Travis Hunter. Big time for him. I was definitely skeptical of him going the Jackson State route, following Deion to Colorado. I think it would have been a lot safer to just sign with Florida State, sign with another big time program, and just take the traditional route. He didn't take a traditional route. he took the route he took, and it got him a Heisman Trophy. So, what do I know? I'm not going to give you any advice, Travis Hunter, and nor do I think you're seeking it from me. So, we'll leave it at that. But congrats to the 2024 Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter. And now we'll get into the transfer portal. Let's get back to the Georgia Bulldogs. We started with a guy from the Peach State, out there in Colorado, but let's get back to the Georgia Bulldogs and the transfer portal updates, because I think that's one of the more interesting aspects, because Georgia does have so much time off, it's one of the things people are focusing on a lot right now. So last time we were on the show, Jamal Jarrett, Michael Jackson, Julian Humphrey, they'd already hit the portal. So those guys, but Julian Humphrey is now committed to Texas A&M. I believe those other two are still uncommitted, if I'm not mistaken. So we hit on those three since the last time we spoke. Justin Rhett, the former 4-star safety, he has hit the portal. Sam Mpemba, the true freshman, 5-star edge rusher from a year ago, he has hit the portal. Jake Pope, the Alabama transfer, former Buford grad. He has also hit the portal. That guy never really cracked the depth chart. None of these guys really cracked the depth chart. And the one that goes most for is the linebacker position, Troy Bowles. Like, when Troy Bowles committed, it was like, okay, it's gonna be an upward battle for you to get on the field with Raylan Wilson, with CJ Allen. And then Georgia brings in Chris Cole, brings in the other one, Justin Williams, in last year's class. And I'm not even counting Smile Munden and other guys that were already in that inside linebacker room. And now this 2025 class, you signed Zayden Walker, the number 1 inside linebacker in the country. Troy Bowles could very well be a productive college football player, could be a solid inside linebacker at this level. But this is a tough room to crack. And I think, I don't think any more explanation is needed. Troy Bowles, top 50 recruit coming out. And Sam Mpemba, even higher than that. He was a 5-star. And Sam Mpemba is one that I would say I'm disappointed with. Sam Mpemba, I kind of compared to the Jaw Jarrett transfer. Like, I think there's a reason lots of times these guys transfer. Sometimes it's to get more money playing somewhere else. Sometimes it's because they didn't like the way they were used in the offense and the defense, something like that. Sometimes they want more playing time, and sometimes it's just they actually know, like, I can't play here. I think sometimes we overlook that aspect. So we see guys like they're entities, right? Like, they're the 37th ranked player in the country coming out of high school. Like, those rankings aren't real. Like, those don't mean anything. You're on Georgia's roster. CJ Allen was whatever rank coming out of high school. Smile Munden was whatever. Raylan Wilson was whatever they were. Once they're on the roster, you're just a player. You're just a guy. You don't have that ranking following you. So we see a guy like Jamal Jarrett with his big time ranking come out of high school. We see a guy like Sam Mpemba, the 5-star ranking come out of high school. And maybe that guy walks into Georgia's room and he says, oh, wow, I'm never going to play at this place. I can't stack up in this depth chart. So that could be all it is. And maybe Sam Mpemba is a bust, or maybe he wasn't going to play at Georgia and he goes on somewhere else and is equally and is a very productive player. So that remains to be seen. But those are the guys that Georgia's lost through the portal. Justin Rhett, I think was he a second year? Excuse me, I need to get a swig of water here. Hold on one second. All right, we're good now. We got it. Appreciate you hanging with me there. So, yeah, Justin Rhett, a second-year guy, safety. Just another guy that just wasn't able to really correct the depth chart. So you can't really hate on a guy like that trying to go somewhere and play right away. So those are the guys that Georgia's lost in the portal. So that's the bad news. We started with the bad news. Now let's get to the better news. I guess it's not good news because nothing has necessarily happened with these guys. But those are the transfer portal losses. Now let's talk about the potential additions in the transfer portal. Like that's what the Clemson Tigers didn't understand. Like, yeah, it's cool. I think most people don't want to have to live in the portal and get guys out of the portal. But if your players are going in the portal, then you damn sure need to be getting players out of the portal. And Clemson made history this week, getting their first commit out of the portal. The wide receiver, I want to say, what is it, from Illinois State or something? But yeah, you got to get the portal. The portal giveth and the portal taketh away. And these are some guys that Georgia's trying to get out of the portal. So to start with, Eric Singleton, the Georgia Tech transfer. This guy's the number one player in the transfer portal right now, and takes his first visit out of the portal to Georgia. And now it appears Georgia's not playing the same game as Eric Singleton, and they appear to be out of the sweepstakes for him. You're seeing a lot of Ole Miss talk, some Texas talk with Eric Singleton. I think he said something about wanting $1 million a year, I think. So, not that we're going to cry for Georgia Tech on this podcast, but man, you lose Eric Singleton in this class. You lose Jared Ivey a couple classes ago. You lose, you lose Jahmyr Gibbs in the portal. The portal has just been really rough on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. But I think that's kind of what it is when you're one of those programs that you are a Power 5 school, a Power 4 school, but you're not one of the elites, then your roster is going to get poached. You've seen South Carolina. Like, South Carolina, someone who's been a lot better than Georgia Tech, and their roster's been poached all over the place. So, a bummer for Georgia Tech, but somebody's going to be getting a dynamic receiver in Eric Singleton. And speaking of dynamic receivers, I think that's where Georgia is going to be the most active in the portal. You've seen them already. I don't have to tell you anything about the future. You can just look at the past and know how active Georgia's going to be in the portal. You brought in Colby Young and London Humphreys in last year's portal. Then the year before that, you bring in Dom Lovett and Ra Thomas. And you brought in Michael Jackson, also from USC last year. That's 5 transfers Georgia's brought in at the receiver position in the last 2 years alone. You also brought in Lawrence Cager a few years ago. Like, Georgia's high school recruiting at the wide receiver position has not been, necessarily what they want it to be. And, I think it's been out of necessity that they've hit the portal, but they've gotten some solid impact players out of the portal. Like Trevor Etienne this year has been maybe Georgia's best offensive weapon. So I think clearly been Georgia's best offensive weapon. So, this could be a potential impact player at this position. Dane Key is the one a lot of people are talking about from the transfer from Kentucky. Kentucky's top transfer or top receiver already, or top 2 receivers already have hit the portal. So Barian Brown has committed to LSU. And now you have Dane Key potentially committing to Georgia, or he's at least visiting Georgia as of Instagram, as of earlier today. So, this guy had a low-key, pretty productive season this year at Kentucky, which didn't have many bright spots, especially at the quarterback position. And this guy had 715 yards, averaged 15 yards a catch, a couple touchdowns on the season, had 108 catches for 105 yards in their win over Ole Miss. He also had 8 for 83 and a touchdown in their close loss to Vanderbilt. Didn't do much, 3 catches for 23 yards when they played Georgia and almost beat Georgia early in the season. But this guy is a big body, 6'3", 210, and averaging 15 yards a catch. Like I said, I think if Georgia's able to get him, I think that'd be a nice addition to this receiver room. And then the other one that hit the portal earlier today out of USC, the combo out of USC, Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch. So Zachariah Branch was a 5-star. I thought this guy was going to be the next Percy Harvin, watching him as a freshman. And if you know anything about me and Percy Harvin, I think Percy Harvin's like one of the most underrated college football players of all time. I think he didn't get nearly enough credit on those great Florida teams, and definitely didn't get any in that documentary that they did, Swamp Kings, on Netflix. Like, Percy Harvin was just an absolute just human joystick. We like to call Isaiah McKenzie the human joystick around these parts in Athens, but Percy Harvin, that dude was just different. Zachariah Branch is a true freshman. This guy is like the number one athlete, number one receiver in the country coming out of high school. 31 catches for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns as a freshman. But he also had 332 punt return yards and took a punt to the house. Also had 442 kick return yards and took a kick to the house. Like, this dude looked like he was going to be a superstar. And then this year, 47 catches for 503 yards. Like, yeah, that's fine. But 10.7 yards a catch, just 1 touchdown. A little worried about that. I mean, USC, their team, wasn't the best situation in USC this year. But this guy's got a lot of ability. He hasn't necessarily put it together yet. I'm shocked a guy like him is on the average 10 yards a carry, or 10 yards a catch, I should say, in his 2 years in college. But I think there's a lot there. And then you couple him with his brother Zion Branch, the 4-star safety a couple years ago. I mean, this guy was a top 50 recruit coming out of high school in his own right. Like, so this guy was also big time. So I know that Georgia is definitely interested in adding something in the portal at the wide receiver position, but you're also losing Dan Jackson. You're also losing Malachi Starks in the secondary. These two guys have said they want to go to the same school, and they were both at USC before. Maybe if they're transferring as a package deal, maybe Georgia is in play. And I've as far as I've heard, Georgia is one of those shortlist schools that's being talked about when it comes to Zachariah Branch. Who are the other schools I think that have been rumored with Branch? I think it's oh man, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but the usual suspects. I think Miami is in there. I want to say is Alabama, probably Ole Miss. You get it. Don't quote me on that because I'm not looking at exactly who's interested in Zachariah Branch right now, but he's definitely going to be a hot commodity in the transfer portal. And then the other one, Justin Young here in the chat. Appreciate you chiming in. Appreciate you tuning in live here at the Georgia Voice of College Football. Justin Young said he wants that young man from UCLA, and Justin is referring to J. Michael Sturdivant, and that is not Michael, not like Jamichael Green that went to Alabama a few years back, the basketball player. This is just J. Michael, just the letter J. Michael. And this dude is a similar build to Dane Key. I think he's similar template receiver, 6'3", 205. This guy, junior, this past year, just 22 catches for 315 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season. Only played in seven games this year, so he had 5 for 117 in their loss to USC. Had 7 for 107 in their loss to Minnesota. Had a 40-yard catch in both of those games. Yeah, I really like J. Michael Sturdivant's look. I think he's the kind of guy that Georgia wants to get out of the portal. I think that's kind of what this team is missing. I mean, you saw what they got out of the portal last year. Colby Young, a big body receiver that can make some of those contested catches. And that's what they tried to add to this team, right? And unfortunately, Colby Young had his off the field issues, and he's been away from the team for the second half of the season. But that's definitely one thing that Georgia's team has been missing. You need those big body guys that can make the contested catches. That's what was so great about this receiving core in 2023. You had Vlad McConkey, the shifty guy, the big play threat. You also had Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint that could make a lot of tough contested catches. Also, just a hell of a blocker. People always sleep on those kind of guys. Georgia seems to always have just really solid receivers like that do the dirty work. And Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint exemplifies that as much as anybody. Oh yeah, and you also had Brock Bowers, who's like the best player that's played at Georgia in maybe a decade. Like, that dude is just a superstar. Not going to get into my fantasy team and how I only needed 5 points on Monday Night Football to win, and Bowers was only able to give me 4.5, and I lose my matchup by a half a point. I'm not going to get into that, though. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to blame Desmond Ridder or anything. It's definitely not Bowers' fault. I'm definitely not going to blame all of my fantasy football losses on Desmond Ridder, but I feel like he definitely played a role. But yeah, so that Georgia 2023 receiving core was just so deep and talented, but it was more importantly, it was just diversified. They had different types of weapons. And this year you're really just all Georgia's guys are just the kind of little small receivers that need to get. They're all like supposed to be guys that get yards after the catch, and none of them like really do. Like Arian Smith is an elite track guy. He's obviously had his problems with drops, and but he's just not necessarily that guy you give the ball to, behind the line of scrimmage and have him make plays after the catch. I would love one thing, just one side note, and I'm not here to disrespect Arian Smith, but if we could just replace Mecole Hardman, like just trade Arian Smith and Mecole Hardman's careers, I would be down for that in a moment. Like they're both those elite like 10-second track guys, like, and Mecole Hardman he's got some of that edge that I think this receiver room is missing this year. But Arian Smith, for all his faults, the guy knows how to recover a damn fumble. I'll tell you that right now. The Kentucky game, the Texas game, he's had some clutch fumble recoveries this season. But I took a turn there. But going back to J. Michael Sturdivant, I think that's the kind of guy Georgia wants to get. And I think based on what Georgia did last year in the portal, getting London Humphreys when they did, getting Colby Young when they did, like, and granted, those guys were highly ranked portal recruits, whatever you want to call them, in the rankings coming out of the portal. I think what you're seeing more than anything is Georgia not getting into bidding wars for guys. Georgia, like, I think they targeted those guys early, and they were like, "Oh, we'll come help the room," and they're like, "All right, let's do it," and they're not gonna wait till the portal closes, till like the price starts to get driven up. It seems like a kind of like MLB teams in the MLB draft, like signability is a very important thing. Like you don't have to get into bidding wars to get some of these guys. And I think a lot of times Georgia's kind of expecting maybe a discount because they have been one of the more consistent programs and are probably the most consistent program in college football. And you're seeing on top of things like people should also, I know the receiver recruiting hasn't been what it is, but it's also like, it's just false narratives. I think half the time that this Georgia team is somehow this like old school offense. Like this is now the third year in a row that Georgia has been I would say, more dangerous passing team. They led the conference in passing yards each of the last 2 years. And what Beck is right near the top again this year. I think we're second or third in passing yards this year. So Georgia's been a passing offense. Their tight end was their best player, and maybe that was throwing off receivers that, I don't want to go to a place that gives the tight end the ball so much. It's like, well, if your tight end is this good, then yeah, you're going to feed him. Brock Bowers is the best player on the team, and so they fed him the rock. And I think that's really what receivers should be looking at is Georgia will get their best player the ball, and that's something they haven't always done. Georgia does like to spread it around, of course, but when Bowers was at his best, he was putting up big numbers. And I think you're seeing a lot of guys that have come in the portal for Georgia. They've definitely made an impact. So outside of the receiver position, I think there's been talk that Georgia wants to improve on the defensive line. I think Kirby has an interesting strategy in the portal because I think a lot of guys like I think a lot of fans, I should say, like use the portal to kind of read between the lines because it's like, oh, this guy left, maybe try to throw in reasons of why it happened or why Georgia's taking a guy at a certain position. I think at times it's like, oh, they're taking a guy at this position. They must not like the guys we have at that. They took Xavier McLeod in this last class, and the defensive line, hasn't been elite or anything this year, but it's been very good. And I think you've seen that Kirby's not afraid to go to the portal to get a guy who's like third, fourth string just to build depth because that depth makes you that much better. And I think that's why Clemson has been so foolish for taking the portal approach that they have, because to be able to build depth with Division I, Power 4 football players, like that's invaluable. Like that's a lot more. You're going to get a lot more of those guys in 1 year than you're going to get out of a potential freshman. So, and then obviously the freshman could just hit the portal the following year. So it's a real like, tightrope walk that coaches are having to do. And I think Kirby Smart probably does it better than anybody. Like it's like MLB, Major League Baseball team, touting their farm system. It's like, okay, farm system's cool. It's cool to have a good farm system. The future looks bright, but I want to win some games now. We want to win now, and so it's that balance of having the roster built for this year, and also having those recruits that are willing to sit for a year, 2 years, and develop and get into the and to start to get onto the field. So you're seeing that balance have to be done all around college football, and I think Kirby Smart's as good as anybody. So that's my take. That's my latest on Georgia's transfer portal. Update, if you will. So, like I said, please share, like, and subscribe to the channel. It always helps us out when you do that. But the last thing I'll hit on before we leave the show today, we got to talk college football playoff. Georgia's not sitting here and not playing in the first round, so they don't have to worry so much. Like I said, 15 days till Georgia plays in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. So right now, I think most Georgia fans are focusing on that Friday night game. I should say most Georgia fans should be focusing on that Friday night game. And let me get the right banner up here, folks. What is this, amateur hour over here? College football playoff first round. Now is a change in topic. We got the screen set up. So Georgia plays the winner of Indiana and Notre Dame. Surprisingly, the most expensive ticket of this opening weekend. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Like, average ticket price is like $300, which is actually the highest. Who would have thought? Who saw that twist coming, that we'd actually get some affordable college football games for the fans here in the college football playoff? I'm here for it. You're not going to hear me complain at all. So I think most fans, you saw that Ohio State Tennessee game come out in the bracket, and it was like, oh, now that's the sexiest matchup of the weekend. That's the one that gets the people going. That revs the people's engine. But I think the Georgia fan needs to be watching on Friday night. The one Friday night game we get is Indiana and Notre Dame, and that's who Georgia's going to play in the Sugar Bowl on January 1st at 8:45 on January 1st. That I will complain about that. Damn, 8:45, making us stay late, and we're going to come with the post game show. So tune in late January 1st. I guess it'll definitely be January 2nd by the time we're going live on that post game show for Notre Dame, Indiana. But we will be coming to you live doing our post game instant reaction, of course, like we always do for every Georgia football game. But just kind of breaking down this Indiana Notre Dame game a little bit. I think this is one of the sneaky good games of the weekend, is because I think most people see this and they see the brand of Notre Dame and the brand of Indiana, and it's at Notre Dame in South Bend. Like, yeah, this is going to be easy. But Indiana has been a very good team this year, and most importantly, I think most people probably watched them play Ohio State and nothing else. And I'm not blaming you for that. They basically played Ohio State and nobody else. But when I look at these two teams, they're so similar. So, like, while you might be saying Indiana has no business being here, they didn't beat anybody, it's like you better keep that same energy with the Fighting Irish, because Notre Dame's sitting over here. So let me give you this stat. Indiana is averaging the average margin of victory. It's winning games by over 28 points a game this year. However, they've played two top 30 teams according to ESPN's FPI, and Michigan is one of those at 30, by the way. Won by 5, and then Ohio State is the other one. They lost by 23, and I think Ohio State is like number 2 or something in the FPI. They're obviously way up there. But other than that, I think you got to go to Nebraska. I think is the next best team. It's like number 45 in the FPI. I think Washington's around 50, and Washington was actually one of their closer games too. They did play that one without Curtis Rourke, so there is that, one by 14 with a backup quarterback. So kudos to Indiana. But Notre Dame's on the other side. Texas A&M, Louisville, and USC, which, say what you like, the FPI likes those teams a lot more than actual rankings do. Like, all 3 of those teams are top 20 in FPI, and A&M has 4 losses. USC's got like 5 losses. Louisville's been a solid ACC team this year. Those are the only 3 top 20 teams in the FBI that Notre Dame has played, and those are the only 3 games that Notre Dame did not win by 3 scores, or 3 or more scores. So I found that really interesting. They beat A&M, obviously, and I feel like they got A&M at the right time. The first game of the Mike Elko era, they didn't really have an identity yet. They won that one by 10. A really sloppy game. Honestly, I was really drinking the Notre Dame Kool-Aid after that Texas A&M win, I think. And also, we all saw what Haynes King and the Georgia Tech offense did against Georgia. The design, the offensive design that Notre Dame, the identity of Notre Dame this year with Riley Leonard, and he is just kind of an average passing quarterback, but he's a legit athlete. This running game is legit with their running backs as well, Jeremiah Love. But so they won beat A&M by 10, beat Louisville by 7, and then USC, that was kind of a shootout, beat them by 14 in the season finale. Other than that, they've been murdering basically everyone they've played, other than Northern Illinois, obviously. But yeah, that's what I was going to say. After the Texas A&M win, I was really buying Notre Dame, and then they immediately lose to Northern Illinois. I jumped off the bandwagon, and I haven't jumped back on. Like, they've been destroying everyone they've played since, but they haven't played anyone that's any good other than those teams I mentioned who aren't great either. So you talk about a team that's got a home playoff game because of their best win of the season, Texas A&M, Louisville? Is that, I don't know, maybe there's 2 teams. Actually, there are 2 teams in this playoff who have a home playoff game, and their best win is Texas A&M and basically nobody else. So they were both at Texas A&M, Notre Dame and the Texas Longhorns. So there is that, but there's some questionable resumes that found their way into this college football playoff. So I think Friday night, this is the game I'm really circling over the weekend, just from a Georgia perspective, that I really want to see. And, it's hard to know what we're going to learn from watching these 2 teams play. I guess we could probably learn more about how Indiana faces Notre Dame than we can from Notre Dame facing Indiana, because if Notre Dame goes out and beats Indiana by 3 scores, then the entire narrative is going to shift on Indiana, that it's like, oh, they were never legit and they had no business being in the playoff. They just got lucky with a super easy Big Ten schedule. And I'm not saying that, but I'm not arguing with the people that say that. So I think there'd be a lot of validity there if that is your opinion. And then from the Notre Dame perspective, Notre Dame, you just know, has more NFL talent throughout the roster than Indiana. So, and they're a more traditional kind of team than Indiana. And also, Georgia might be built a little bit more like Notre Dame with Gunnar Stockton and maybe more of a run first kind of attack on offense. But that's one of the interesting things about this college football playoff is, from a Georgia perspective, is we're going to see a new team when we see the Georgia Bulldogs run out on January 1st. And that could be a good thing, and that could also be a bad thing. So time will tell as far as that goes. But ultimately, I think we're sitting at, I think they're a 7.5 point favorite, Notre Dame. I think I like Indiana to keep this game close, but ultimately I do think Notre Dame is going to get the win. I was also kind of wondering, when it comes to those expensive tickets, like the most expensive ticket of the weekend being this Notre Dame Indiana game, obviously the geography it plays a role here, right? Both teams are in Indiana, and a game's going to be played in Indiana. Tennessee, Ohio State, I would think that travel wouldn't be an issue there, and that would be the most expensive ticket of the weekend. Maybe Ohio State fans aren't as juiced right now for the college football playoff, but and then SMU fans are obviously traveling across the country to get to that one, and Clemson fans having to travel halfway across the country to get to Texas. So geography is a factor there. So maybe it's just geography, and there's just a lot of people that can make it to these Indiana Notre Dame games. I'm also speculating. We all remember 2017 when Georgia went into South Bend and absolutely took over the stadium, took over the town, took over Chicago nearby. Like, Georgia fans were all over, calling the dogs in Wrigley Field, all over the place. I wonder if it's almost like a Notre Dame fans like, we're not letting that happen again. We home playoff game in South Bend. We need to be buying up those tickets right now. Maybe it's the Notre Dame as just a wealthy fan base that can afford tickets at any price, spare no expense for the Fighting Irish. But yeah, so we'll see. I wonder about that game, but that's Friday night. That's gonna be our first taste of the college football playoff before we get the 3 games on Saturday. And obviously, Georgia will be awaiting the winner of that one. And I'd imagine be at least a 7-point favorite, maybe a 10-point favorite over either of those teams. Not that I'm thinking Georgia just dominates either of these teams. I don't know. Like I just said, I don't know what Georgia team to necessarily expect when we see this team strap them up on January 1st. But that remains to be seen. When it comes to Penn State, our first game our first game on Saturday in the college football playoff, we got SMU and Penn State. When it comes to Penn State, I just feel like just don't overthink it. Like, I don't want to disrespect SMU. I think they deserve to get here. I think they deserve to be in the college football playoff. But when you look at what Penn State has done in the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've basically beaten anybody who's not an elite team in college football. SMU, no disrespect, is not an elite team in college football. So I think Penn State takes care of business. I think right now they're sitting at let me pull up these. I need to have these scores handy while I talk. So like I said, Indiana was a 7-point dog. Penn State is a 8.5-point home favorite. I just think they'll take care of business. Like, yeah, maybe SMU gives them a game, but ultimately, if you're not an elite team, you don't beat Penn State. That they've made James Franklin has made a career off of just beating the teams he's supposed to beat. And maybe one day he'll beat someone he's not supposed to beat, but until then, just trust that this guy's going to beat the teams he's supposed to beat. I think Penn State wins this one and covers. I think they could win this one by 2 or 3 touchdowns, to be honest. And I'm not even impressed by Penn State's offense. I was absolutely shocked by that performance against Oregon, where they put up a 37 spot. I'm used to Penn State losing games 20-13, like the one against Ohio State, or how they typically lose to Michigan, where their defense plays great, and if they get a defensive touchdown, then they can win the game. They did get a defensive touchdown against Ohio State, right? Or they like get a pick and return it to the 1 or something like that. No, they did get the defensive touchdown and didn't score an offensive touchdown against Ohio State. Like that's typical Penn State football right there. But yeah, against SMU, call it disrespect if you want, but I think they take care of business against SMU. Texas, the 4:00 game, Clemson going on the road at Texas. Texas is a 12-point home favorite in this one, and I'm torn here. The college football brain in me is saying Texas has played 13 games and they have not beaten a team that is ranked, right? Like, they have not beaten a currently ranked team. Texas A&M is their only really good win. Like, who's the next best win? Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. Like, they did blast Florida, but it was the week Lagway was out. Like, I felt like Florida had a lot of injuries, but they did beat Florida bad. But this Texas team, they've gotten all the way here, and I still don't know how good they are. Like I was going to say, from a Georgia perspective, I really hope that Texas is like elite of elite. And that means Georgia is elite of elite, because they absolutely shut down this Texas offense twice now. Like, I guess I won't say they shut down Texas in the SEC championship, but they definitely, between the 20s, Texas was able to have some success, but Georgia's done such a good job this year of not allowing teams to score touchdowns. In most of their games this year, Georgia's done a pretty good job of keeping teams out of the end zone. And so 2 performances against Texas, 7 sacks, 6 sacks, like, forcing turnovers. Like, the most dominant defensive performances of the season were both times that Georgia played Texas. The other one, well, that happened to be the time that Georgia played Clemson. So from a Georgia perspective, we've seen a lot of each of these 2 teams. And I keep going. I'm not buying Clemson by any means, but I'm just not buying Texas. I still don't know how good Texas is through 13 games this season. Like Quinn Ewers is good, not great. This running game has been really good at times, not great. This defense has been really, really good, but I can't overlook the SEC schedule they played this year. And I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but it's my favorite stat to cite. I've been citing it for like a month or so now. Texas beat the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 15th, and 16th teams in the SEC standings, as well as Texas A&M in the final game of the season, who I think would end up like 4th or 5th. That was the only good win. And then the other good team they played was Georgia, who beat them both times. So I still just don't know how good Texas is. But on the other side, you look at Clemson. Who have they lost to? They've lost to Georgia. They've lost to South Carolina. They lost to Louisville. Like, those are the only like top 30 FPI teams I believe they've played all season until SMU. And then they beat SMU. That's their one good win. So SMU is their one good win. Is Clemson's one good win. Texas A&M is Texas's one good win. The fact that this is at home in Austin, I think that goes a long way. But I do not feel good about Texas covering this spread. Like you just look at like the A&M game. Like they were dominating that game, and they had 17 points. They could have been 31-0, and it was 17-0. Texas gets the pick six, or A&M gets the pick six, and they block the field goal that they almost returned for a touchdown, and they're in that game. I feel like this is going to be similar to the Texas A&M Texas game. Like I think Texas is clearly the better team, but I think Clemson's going to hang around for a while in this one. And I think Cade Klubnik, I've been comparing him to 2022 Bo Nix, not 2023 Bo Nix, who was a Heisman finalist, but 2022 Bo Nix, who was just a really solid player. Like, he's kind of left for dead after his years at Auburn, and then was like, oh, wow, have you looked up at Oregon? Bo Nix is having a great season. I kind of feel that way about Cade Klubnik. He was kind of left for dead after not a great year in 2023. But I think Cade Klubnik is still a serviceable quarterback, and he's a really dangerous guy with his legs. So I tend to think Clemson hangs around in this one, and this is like a 7-point type of game, maybe a 24-17 or something like that. But I think these are two solid defenses. I think Texas is the better team, but I don't think they win this one easily at all. I think this is going to be a good fourth quarter game right here. But yeah, give me Texas to win, but not cover. And then the last one. So I don't know how many of you were tuning in to our Voice of College Football SEC show we do every Tuesday at 7:00. Me and Matthew Miller before this. But I'm going to make the same analogy that I made in that show with Tennessee, Ohio State. I think this was like the best game on the slate when you saw the bracket come out. Ohio State is so negative right now. I'm getting vibes of 2021 Georgia, Michigan. And for the diehard Georgia fans on this channel and in the chat, tuning in live, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's go back in the time machine, go back to December 2021. And man, can you remember the discourse that was happening? It wasn't about Kirby Smart being fired, although I'm sure those people were out there. He can't beat Saban. He can't beat Bama. Stetson has no business playing in the college ball playoff. We can't win the big one with Stetson. What are we doing? And you saw Georgia come out and just dominate Michigan like they haven't dominated many teams in the entire Kirby Smart tenure, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think there's a more surprising result other than maybe the Texas game earlier this year, because we had already lost a game, went on the road at Texas, and that was a dominating performance too. But to just come out the way Georgia did in that Orange Bowl in 2021, 27-3 at halftime, Georgia wins it 34-11, and it was 14-0 at the end of the first, and it was Jermaine Burton had the long touchdown before the half to make it 27-3. It was just domination. And it was like because of all the negativity, like the team just stayed focused. Like maybe that helped the team keep a chip on their shoulder. But I'm not comparing Ohio State to Georgia or Ryan Day to Kirby Smart or anything, but I mean, they're probably not far off. I think Ryan Day, two things can be true. Jim Harbaugh's quote about some people were born on third base and they think they hit a triple is one of the all-time trash talks I can ever remember from one head coach to another. Like that was an all-timer. But so I'm here. I'll tip my cap. I'll give you credit for the trash talk. But if we're like coming back to reality, we're having conversations with our normal friends. Ryan Day is one of the best coaches in college football. Like I'm here for it. Like with Ryan Day, it's one of those things. Like I'm not going to die on the hill defending Ryan Day. If people want to talk trash about him, I'm here for it. I'm not going to get his back. But at the end of the day, I truly believe Ryan Day is one of the elite coaches in college football. And I definitely believe Ohio State has one of the elite rosters in college football. Like I was saying about Texas, I don't know who they are after 13 games this year. I feel the same way about Tennessee. They have the big win over Alabama. Other than that, it's like people have talked all year about the team they want Tennessee to be and what they want Nico to be and what they thought Nico was going to be. And they've kind of failed to acknowledge like what Tennessee really is this year. They feel like a Big Ten team. Like they feel like a just 2 yards in a cloud of dust type of team, play good defense and run the football. And hey, I'm the last guy that's going to sit here and criticize a team who's playing good defense and running the football. But they're not this explosive team that they're kind of talked about being. And Nico is not necessarily this elite quarterback that he's talked about being, that he was supposed to be coming out of high school. I'm not saying Nico's not ever going to be an elite quarterback, but through 12 games, Tennessee has had a very average offense, maybe even below average in terms of the SEC this year. I think they were in the bottom half of the SEC. I think averaged like 23 points a game in conference play this year. Like nothing special. They were shut out in the first half of 3 different games this year. Like this offense has really like not come to play at times. So if they come out and are slow offensively, like I could see a scenario where Ohio State's up 21-0 at halftime. Like this game, and that's what brings me back to that 2021 Orange Bowl with Georgia, Michigan. There's just so much negativity around Ohio State. It feels like the time that Ohio State just comes back and just makes a statement. Like this feels like it's going to be a statement win for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Like I'm not saying they are going to blow out Tennessee. I just wouldn't be surprised if it happened. Like I was complimenting Tennessee. Their defense is really good. The defensive line is really good. But you look at the teams they've played this year. Like Georgia beat them. Gone on the road at Arkansas, lost. Like this team does not do well on the road. Vanderbilt, they're down 14-0. Oklahoma, even a bad Oklahoma team that Jackson Arnold got benched at halftime. That's the other thing. Tennessee, you've had Jackson Arnold got benched at halftime. Grayson McCall at NC State. I don't think he was benched in that game. This guy retired from football before the season was over. Taylon Green even got hurt in the fourth quarter of that Arkansas game. They still lost. Graham Mertz got hurt in the Florida game. And granted, DJ Lagway came in, but that was not the plan. The plan was to have Graham Mertz and Lagway. So there's been a lot of games where Tennessee's kind of taken advantage of just teams with bad quarterback play. So Will Howard's not great. Will Howard, I think, is better than most of the quarterbacks Tennessee has played this year. So with that said, I'm going to take Ohio State to win this one and cover. I think this one has blowout potential, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this was a rock fight and it was 13-10, because I think these are two really good defenses. But if Tennessee doesn't come out, ready to play, I think there's a chance that the Ohio State Buckeyes make a statement in this one. They don't have maize and blue, and so you've seen how much success Ohio State has had against everyone that's not wearing maize and blue. So I like Ohio State's chances in this one to come out and make a statement and get the victory. So what would that mean? That mean I would have Georgia. Did I give a spread? I said Notre Dame. I want to pick Indiana. I'll be honest. I really want to pick Indiana in that one. but I can't. I'm going to take Georgia Notre Dame. We're going to have Georgia Notre Dame in the 2-7 matchup. In the 1-8 matchup, we'll have Oregon Ohio State. In the 4-5, we'll have Arizona State and Texas. And then in the 3, what would that be? 3-6, we will have Boise State and Penn State. So I think that'll make for a good quarterfinals and an interesting talking point. So next week we'll definitely be talking Georgia or Indiana, Georgia Notre Dame, whoever they are facing in the Sugar Bowl. It should be a fun one. I'm sure we'll have a transfer portal update, but hopefully we can stick to the season that's currently happening in front of us. But that's all I have for tonight's show. I appreciate everyone who tuned in live. Can't thank you guys enough. Like I always say, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, the Georgia Voice of College Football. We come here every Tuesday. This probably is a good time for a programming update. Might be coming at you next Monday, with the next Tuesday being Christmas Eve. That remains to be seen. But usually we're coming to you every Tuesday at 8:15. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, I'm on the SEC Voice of College Football channel. Check me out there. And also every post game, we come to you that night with a post game instant reaction. And that'll be probably January 2nd at about midnight, 12:30, whatever time I can that game gets over and I can start to prep. So thank you for everyone who tuned in and is watching, and I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. I'm Matt Green for the Georgia Voice of College Football. Thanks.